What if I told you that every time Christ said, "Let he that has ears listen to what the Spirit is saying to the churches," it was monumentally important, hiding a wealth of knowledge just waiting for me to decode? But on what basis would one get something out of it? With the proper esoteric knowledge, the number of the verse speaks volumes. This occurs in both Revelation 2 and Revelation 3. Please do not object to the use of tarot cards. They are not being used for divination, but the images and themes of the cards were based on the revelation and the Egyptian mysteries of the 22 major arcana. Revelation 2 and 3 are the High Priestess and the Empress. The decoding of "Let he that has ears" is pretty easy and straightforward for the Empress. Arcana 3 is the Triple Goddess and Motherhood archetype, so it is concerned with pregnancy and reincarnation. Its first church is Sardis, which has died, so Christ comes upon it as a thief. The second is Philadelphia, which are the common people who love one another, to whom the door is opened. The last one is Laodicea, which is the Mother Church Universal, the Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church. All three of these churches are bound in the circle of Samsara, the second resurrection, which begins after the flood of Noah, where in Genesis 6:3 people were sentenced to lifespans of around 120 years or less. Here is where Jesus says, "Let he that has ears listen to what the Spirit is saying to the churches." It is the everlasting covenant between humanity and spirit that humanity of all varieties, the Orthodox, the common people who love one another, and the ones with no virtues at all that have died, shall reincarnate and live decent lives. He says it at verse 6, the lovers, verse 13, death, reincarnation, rebirth, and verse 22, the fool. Now think about that for a moment. The fools, the lovers, mating and having children, which are also Adam and Eve in the garden, and always being subject to death and reincarnation with normal lifespans, such as we are now. If one is in samsara, there is always a second death just around the corner. Now for something more challenging, the decoding of the secret message for the High Priestess. I didn't look at these until recently because unlike Revelation 3, which has 22 verses, Revelation 2 has 29 verses, so it does not conform to the pattern of the major arcana, and yet there are still secrets to unveil. The first church is Ephesus. The early Christians who reject the Apostle Paul, for which they are praised, but they have also lost their first love. Any believers today who overcome and reject false Apostle Paul shall be counted worthy to be part of the 144,000 who are without guile. Assuming they are otherwise worthy and meet the qualifications, they are sent an invitation, so to speak. At verse 7, Christ says, "Let he that has ears listen to what the Spirit is saying to the churches. To him that overcomes will I give to eat of the tree of life in the midst of the paradise of God." This refers to the Garden of Eden. The chariot is a tarot archetype that also symbolizes the four horsemen. People make a huge mistake in their thinking with regard to the four horsemen of the apocalypse. In the paradise of God, people loved one another. There was no war, no famine, and people have lived for thousands of years without dying. The Sumerian kings list has a few kings that reigned for 100,000 years. Isaiah 65, the righteous will still be a child at the age of 100, but the sinner will be old. And the two resurrections are based on this. So the truth about the four horsemen of the apocalypse, conquest, war, famine, and death, is that they began to ride with the fall of man, and especially after the flood of Noah, though probably at the end of the corrupt pre-flood civilization before it as well. Mankind, having fallen from paradise, goes forth to conquer. We create nations. Nations go to war with one another. We burn crops. We are cursed to till the ground and sorrow to grow those crops. We are subject to famine and a hasty death. So, did you catch that? Did you hear what the Spirit is saying to those who reject and overcome the Apostle Paul, aka Christianity, but don't walk away from your first love, the Lord of the Old Testament, the Ancient of Days, the Son of Man? When saints fall away from Christianity, they take the Holy Spirit with them. They may never attend another church, but they don't fall away from anything important because, having become saints, their nature is still the same. They have turned against the religion for intellectual reason, but their hearts are still belong to the Holy Spirit. The first resurrection takes place on the other side of Noah's flood, where they stand on the sea of glass. Three possible explanations. Either they go back in time as spirits and reincarnate in the past, time itself is turned into a circle, or the new heavens, new earth follows the same pattern as the previous, where there will again be an age of longevity for those with long lifespans, a great flood, and then another age of reduced lifespan. If I may make a determination, we are in what the Native Americans call the fourth world. Time moves forward, people survive, we have a golden age of paradise, and then we go through the Kali Yuga cycles back to where we are now in the Iron Age. The second resurrection souls wouldn't be reborn again until after the next golden age. Now for the church of Smyrna. He also says, let he that has ears listen to what the Spirit is saying to the churches. Verse 11 shows us the tarot card, which is lust's strength, the woman riding the beast. This applies to both the Catholic Church and the synagogue of Satan, as referenced in what Christ says to Smyrna. They must altogether overcome and escape the woman riding the beast. If they do this, they will not be hurt by the second death. Pay close attention to the phrasing here. It doesn't say they could get annihilated in the second death, just hurt, bruised, damaged, like it were a minor thing, because the second death in the lake of fire, I suspect, is reincarnation, which the Buddhist monks are trying to escape. They too are trying to get back to paradise, though some of them and the Gnostics might just be trying to escape the material world altogether. The true salvation is living for thousands of years in a world that is paradise. Do not demonize the spirit of joy. For those who are bound by reincarnation and samsara and the second resurrection, there is always a second death just around the corner. So if you can overcome the woman riding the beast and the synagogue of Satan but remain with virtue, if you lose your faith completely and become the church of Sardis and the thief steals your crown, but it's a very special set of people who can take the good of a thing while also rooting out the evil. That requires people to actually think for themselves and care. So the church of Smyrna are likely Hebrews and maybe even Muslims, whereas the church of Ephesus were Christians who needed to overcome Paul. I mention the Muslims because the worship of the black stone is also the woman riding the beast. Next is the church of Pergamos, where Satan's throne is found. This is Revelation 2:1-3. An interesting side note is that Ezra 2:13 is the only place 666 is found in the Old Testament and refers to the sons of Anakim. I'm not too sure about this one, actually, where he says, let he that has ears listen. It is verse 17, showing us the tarot card, which is the star. This can have a number of meanings. One that comes to mind is that in Islam there is the symbol of the star and the moon. Where it mentions eating things blessed onto idols, that's halal food. The Arabs consecrate the food, so it might be saying that you should reject that orthodox practice. They also have to overcome the doctrines of Balaam and the Nicolaitans, which I think has to do with lust and sorcery or divination. They are offered to eat of the hidden manna and given a white stone with a new name only they know. Sorry, but I don't know anything about those. Disclaimer, I am not Jesus. I do not want to be Jesus. Gospel of Thomas, verse 108 says, he that drinks from my words will become like me. I will become that person, and the hidden things will be revealed. Is Christ a spirit whispering things into my ears? Are there certain things only Christ would know? Gospel of 7, lucky is the lion whom the man will eat so that the lion will become human. You are what you eat. Foul is the human whom the lion will eat, and the lion will still become human. Job 41, Leviathan beholds all things. Finally, there is Thyatira, who must overcome the Jezebel spirit. They are offered to be given the morning star, which could be a reference to Venus rather than Lucifer, the king of Babylon. But then again, Revelation 2:26, he that keeps my words to the end will I give power over the nations. He shall rule those nations with a rod of iron. As the vessels of a potter, they shall be broken to shivers. Wow. What do you Christians have to say for yourselves? Do you think it is righteous to desire this? Christ is offering to turn the church of Thyatira into evil tyrannical world leaders of mystery Babylon that torment the nations, and he is offering them the morning star, which is Lucifer, even as God let him, Lucifer the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, be a tyrant, which is what he means when he says, even as I received it of my Father. This is the Luciferian doctrine right here. As proof of my claim, here is the final, let he that has ears listen to what the Spirit is saying to the churches. But it's verse 29, so it can't be decoded with tarot cards. It can, however, be decoded with the I Ching. I Ching 29 is Khan, which is the abyss. 30 is the the watery abode which is the home to Leviathan and Satan,